Well, we welcome you to our board meeting. We're sorry we're tardy, but it is the first week of school for us. So we apologize for that. Welcome, everybody to our board meeting tonight. The agendas are posted around the room. Um, And we will begin our night tonight with a pledge of allegiance by Mr. Matt Williams, please.
Please repeat the pledge after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Our first item on the agenda is the consent calendar, and I would entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
So moved by Jan, second by Bruce. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. So we move to the next, which will be the presentation. Smart Foodscape and Food Gardeners, Michelle Parslow. Wait a minute. Okay.
No.
Right. Superintendent, President Ritchie, and board, we are so excited that we are back to being able to offer you our curriculum presentations again. Tonight, we have a fantastic student project under the direction of Michelle Parslow at Walquist Junior High School. This is a fantastic experience. You guys are just going to be blown away by what you'll see tonight. And she's even brought a cute little student, Sophie, to help us with our presentation tonight. So that will be even better. This is the STEAM garden-based learning project at Walquist. Michelle Parslow instituted this a couple of years ago with support from Utah State University with a research grant, which is fantastic. What is really cool about this is not only are students learning about content areas, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, which is a fantastic pairing, but they're also learning to be good stewards of our land. So, and Michelle is even cooler because not only does she teach art, but she was a former math teacher as well. So, right? Yes. So I would love to turn the time over to Mrs. Michelle Parslow.
Hello, I'm Mrs. Parslow, and this is Sophie, and we're here to tell you about STEAM garden-based learning. And as Sherry Hyder explained, it is science, technology, engineering, art, and math that we integrate. And I do that. I can't remember who's advancing the slides. Oh,
Trent.
I do it. And I do that with, I started this with the help of Utah State. And our professor is Kathy Trundle. She's a PhD there. All right, so.
I think you have to point it that way.
Look at this. It works.
Magic.
Okay, so our original funding source was the SEED grant through Utah State University, and Walquist received the funding from that SEED grant to do the very first experiment. SEED means that this is their first try at seeing if this idea that they have is going to work in the schools. And so because of the success with our program at Walquist, Utah State has now applied for and received a USDA grant, and we're still funded through that USDA grant at Walquist for another 3 years.
Yep.
All right, so back in 2019, I requested the STEAM projects course to be offered at Walquist so I could teach it because like Sherry said, I do have a background in math and I was an art teacher and I wanted to teach some math in my classes. So that was a good reason to integrate the subjects. And besides the fact that I thought students could learn so much more if we had projects that integrated the subjects and really contextualized the learning for them. Okay, so the district approved my request and we have STEAM projects courses now. And I think they've even spread to other schools in the district. But I took a class offered by Dr. Trundle in 2020 when she was applying for the SEED grant and she received it. And that's how she asked me to implement it at Walquist. And then my administrators were kind enough to agree that we could do it there. And so we have been constructing, we got an IRB, we got Weber School District's approval, and we've built a garden space at Walquist. In my STEAM projects classes, I have the students like do some scale drawings to plan. Now, the current times they do this, the garden's mostly planned there, but they can add like things through some extra creativity. But it just gives them, you know, an integration of proportion, scale, precision, creativity. It kind of integrates all those STEAM subjects I was talking about. And so the students can draw this up and understand scales and how, you know, budgeting works. And they even have to consider sun plots. And so this is one of our projects that we do. It's an integrated project that involves the garden. When we were building, these are some pictures from our building construction time. And I had some volunteers from our school. This nice lady over here with the glasses, she teaches the life skills. She's a life skills teacher there at Walquist, and she came and helped me on a Saturday put together the shed. And we have a greenhouse, and we have 6 garden beds. And the football team came one time and helped us bring over the boards for the decking under the greenhouse. And the reason we took pictures of that corner of the garden bed is because we were using the Pythagorean triples to make sure the corners were square. And so we just included that picture to show that we were really integrating all the STEAM subjects while we're doing this stuff. Measurement and all kinds of stuff. Okay, so here is a picture from last spring of some of our garden club members. We do meet every week and sometimes twice, depending on how much there is to do. And we do STEAM activities and take care of the garden. And also learn sustainable practices. The experts from Utah State are always sending us things like books and resources, expert resources on the best ways to do these practices and to teach and lessons. And in fact, they sent a lesson they wanted piloted, and one of our garden club kids, I'll let Sophie talk about that. She piloted one of their lessons. And so anyways, so they're always sending us, you know, expert advice and things to do. We meet all the time. The students help grow the produce. Esteban here in this picture said he might be here tonight. I'm a little disappointed that he's not because I was going to have him talk about how he planted. And he even donated some of the seeds for the garden. And right now they're producing, like the pepper he's planting right there is producing peppers right now. And him and his brother donated some Cherokee tomatoes, which are producing Cherokee tomatoes right now. It's really fun to have the kids grow up some of the stuff they donate, the seeds they donate, have a harvest. And the students get to take the harvest home, the garden club students do. So this is the part where I'm going to let Sophie talk about how her group planned the Three Sisters garden bed. And she's going to talk about what companion plants are and the Native American story of the three sisters and what that means and how those plants do that. And then her group also wrote their own another additional story. They researched companion plants, made seed cards and everything, and then they wrote a Four Brothers story about some companion plants that they thought would work good together in a bed too. So go ahead, Sophie.
So the three sisters plants are corn, bean, and squash. So how we planted it was we made a hill of dirt and we put the corn in the middle of it and put the beans on the side and the squash on the ground. So how they help each other is the beans climb up the squash of the corn, sorry, so they can climb up it and so they have support, and the squash shade the ground so they can not have the weeds grow in. And we our brother's story of peppers, tomatoes, oregano, and basil. And our story is there was once four brothers. The youngest wore a mint green cloak. His personality is calm, but he has a wild side. He isn't the tallest of the brothers, but he's not the shortest. The second youngest brother looks a lot like his youngest brother, but has a slight difference. He also has a green mint cloak. He is a little more energetic than his younger sibling, but can be slightly mean sometimes and has passion for the earth. The second oldest brother wears a red cloak with a green trim at the top. He is also very skinny, has a strong personality with the most mean side. He is friends with the bitterest people. The oldest brother also wears a bright red cape with a green trim at the top. He is very sweet but has a sassy part to him. He is the tallest of them all and watches over them. One day when they were all doing their chores apart from each other, a scary black bird creature approached the oregano outside. The creature said, "I will eat all of your plants if you don't let me have what I want." The oldest brother said, "What do you want then?" "I want every last bit of your plants of your fresh honey and your fresh honey. If you don't accept my offer, then I will destroy your house and all your loved ones." The oldest brother sat there and thought about it for a minute. He knew it would still be a trap even if he gave him the plants, but he had no other choice but to give him the plants. So he gave the black creature the plants, and the black creature flew off and dropped them from his claws. The black creature did not keep his promise and ended up destroying the four brothers in their home. But the plants that the black-like creature dropped regrew, representing each of the four brothers, and now are living a memory of the four brothers.
They made up their own story, like the Native Americans made up the story of the Three Sisters Garden, but this is their story for their companion plants. Okay, so here's the Three Sisters Garden, a little more grown up than when they first planted it. It's got tall corn now and big squash and some green beans growing. In my STEAM projects class this morning, we came out. This is one of the students. All the pictures I'm using of students, I have permission slips from photo permission slips. So from their parents that we can use their photos. So anyway, she is showing her nature journal that we were out nature journaling this morning. And some things that students learn from nature journaling are scientific and aesthetic observation, creative and technical writing. They learn questioning, inventiveness, synthesis, and meditation, focus, self-confidence, and ability to express themselves. Our garden club resources are still growing. The new technology that Utah State's grants have purchased for us this year include a weather station, which we put up this morning in the garden, so it's no longer just on my desk, now it is installed. We're going to learn to use the drone next week. I have a community member coming to teach the students how to run that drone. That he's an expert in, he has a drone just like it, and he said that he can come teach us. And then we have like a digital microscope and a trail cam because there was a critter eating some of our things the other day, and we have visitors like hummingbirds and stuff. We want to catch images of them. So they bought us a trail cam. All right, so anyway, the Utah State process comes with a research component. And so at Walquist, we did last fall, 2021, some preliminary surveys. And these were all IRB approved and such, but the students took these surveys and the ones that we had assent and consent from the parents and students, we did this correlation table from their survey. And these are the statistically significant correlations that we have found so far from our data that we're taking from the Walkwest students. We've learned that the science and mathematics identity were statistically significantly related to students' interest in STEM careers, and that's pretty well known. But statistically significant correlations between students' nature identity and their interest in pursuing science, math, and art careers wasn't as well known. So if they have a nature identity, and we also have established through some other tests that the nature identity is grown through experience in a garden. And so if they're having even a school garden, it's increasing their nature identity, which is also connected to their science, mathematics, and art career interests. Students who were interested in a technology career showed a statistically significant interest in an engineering career, and that was our highest correlation. And so that was important because we don't often think of, well, future engineers, we think, well, they're going to do math and science, which is true. But also it was related to very high to technology. And so the more technology we introduce these kids with and let them have experiences with, it helps them have more interest in engineering careers. And art. The last one is interest in an art career was significantly related to science, mathematics, engineering, technology careers. So I think it's the creativity in art that, you know, it really influences their STEM career interest. And so that has been shown to be correlated also, statistically correlated. So those are some of the early preliminary findings, and we're not done doing research, but we'll continue on for the next 3 years. Do you guys have any questions? Do it next year. You're 8th grade, right? Yeah. She's an
long
8th
ways
grader,
away.
but she did our garden club last year, and she's back with us again this year. She's awesome. Would you guys like a handout?
It'd be great. Like this.
Excuse the pun, but I hope this thing blossoms. I think it's just the tip of the iceberg of what these students can be involved in, and I think it's a wonderful program.
Thank you.
It's them outside and away.
Yeah, get them outside and connected to nature and on to high-paying careers.
And I want to recognize Mr. Elliott, Mr. Brown from Wildquist, who actually allowed this to happen on the brand new grass we put in there about 7 years ago. Thanks, guys, for supporting this. This is awesome. That's great.
Thanks for your support.
Job well done, Sherry and Ms. Parslow and Sophia. Board, the next item will be a discussion and action item on the approval of the administrative changes. Mr. Brock Mitchell, please.
President Ritchie, Board, Superintendent, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you for shaking up our world here early in the year. We had a little bit of a shuffle that went on in the secondary world with our administrators, with Heather Hardy's move into the district office as our compliance officer. It opened a position at T.H. Bell Junior High as the principal, and we have asked Nicole Warren Doman to fill that role of principal at T.H. Bell. With her move to T.H. Bell, it opened a position as an assistant principal at Bonneville High School, and we asked Brooke Young to fill that role. And Brooke was the assistant principal at Rocky Mountain Junior High. And so in looking at that, we decided to fill that role with another intern position. So we have interns at each of the 4 junior highs, and we've asked Carrie Frederickson to fill that role at Rocky Mountain Junior High. So those are the administrative changes for the secondary schools.
Thank you, Brock. Board, you've heard the presentation. What I will do, if it's okay, is ask for the approval, and then we'll turn it over to the superintendent for introductions. Does that work? That would be great. Having said that, I entertain a motion to accept. Janice, second by Paul. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Superintendent, please.
Great. Thank you so much. I want to make sure we get these great leaders recognized and allow everybody to get to know them a little bit better. So Heather Hardy, would you pop up here first? Thank you. We're going to put you on the spot, Heather. Heather is serving as our new compliance officer, as was mentioned by Brock Mitchell. This is her 19th year in education. She has a Bachelor's of Science in Social Work from Weber State, a Master of Arts in Educational Counseling from the University of Phoenix, and she, of course, has her administrative endorsement. She's spent 2 years at Fremont High as a secondary administrative intern, 3 years at Roy Junior High as the assistant principal, and the last 5 years at Snowcrest Junior High, where she did an outstanding job as principal at Snowcrest. She is married. She has been for 23 years to her husband, Brad. She's got 2 daughters, Taylor and Hayden, and 1 soon-to-be son-in-law, Austin. And I'd ask Heather to address the board. Thank you.
It just slides up and down.
Because I'm short. I'm used to taking the mic off. I just want to thank you, board, for this opportunity. And sorry, not sorry for all the shuffling that I've created in the secondary world, because I couldn't be more thrilled to have the opportunity to work here at the district with the new leadership team. So thank you so much. And to Superintendent Butters, I wouldn't be here without you. You've been such a great support to me, not only as superintendent, but in all your leadership positions. Thank you for that. You're my role model. I hope to be Superintendent Butters one day.
So,
You're incredible.
aim higher, aim higher.
And my new team, I'm so excited to work with my new team. Heidi's here and Jamie's here tonight, and my family, because the last 2 times I was up here, I forgot to recognize them. And they backed me up all the way in these last 19 years. But my husband, Brad, and my daughter, Hayden, and my daughter, Taylor, and my soon-to-be son-in-law, Austin. And my parents are always here every time to support me, and Craig and Pam Hanny.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, thanks, Heather. Nicole Warren Dolman, let's have you come on up. Nicole is in her, she said 20 plus years, so I don't know if she's wanting to not give that away, but 20 plus years in education. Nicole has her Bachelor of Arts in Child and Family Studies from Weber State and a Master's in Instructional Leadership from Utah State. She has really fulfilled a lot of different roles in her journey in education. She was a paraprofessional at both the elementary and secondary levels, a special education teacher at Orion Junior and Roy High School. She served as the administrative intern at both Canyon View and Two Rivers, 2 years as assistant principal at T.H. Bell, which is one of the reasons she's going back to T.H. Bell. She knows the community, she's built those relationships. And then she has spent the last 3 years as assistant principal at Bonneville High School. This is what she wrote about her dear family. I have 3 children. My oldest daughter, Paige, is 27, currently living her best life in Salt Lake City. My 2 boys, Sam and Henry, are 11 and 9 and both attend Loman View Elementary. My wonderful husband, Ryan, is my biggest supporter and best friend. For the last several years, we've chosen to prioritize our family and adjusted our lifestyle and budget so that we can be full-time parents to our 2 boys. Welcome, Nicole. Go ahead, address the board.
Thank you, board, and thank you, Superintendent Butters. And I also want to thank the secondary leadership in the district. I appreciate your faith in me. This has been a wild ride. My wonderful assistant, Ryan Waite, who had so much ready to go. And I also want to say thank you to Heather, because with that quick exit and my quick entry, kind of right when teachers were coming back and right when students were coming back, I couldn't have done it had they not done so much pre-work and preliminary work that I could just step right in and take off with what they had ready. So thank you so much for having so much of that done. And my wonderful assistant, Ryan Waite, and I sat down and looked at the calendar and we're like, okay, how long has it been since I've been here? And we said 2.5 weeks. And I said, wow, it feels a lot longer than that. It's been a long 2.5 weeks, but a really, really great 2.5 weeks. And I'm super, super excited about the great things we're going to do at TH Bell, the great things that we're going to continue that have already been started, and how we're going to move things forward. I echo what Heather said, and probably would not have taken this leap had I not had the support of this wonderful superintendent, who I also have called my mentor for years and years and years. So I've been trained by the best, so I want to say thank you to Brock Mitchell, and who was the principal at Bonneville for the 3 years that I was there. So I'm really, truly grateful. And my husband and my boys were going to be here tonight, but our air conditioner went out last Friday. The repairman could only come right now. So the very best way for him to support me is to be at home getting that fixed. So that's why they're not here with us tonight. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Nicole. Sliding into Nicole's vacancy as an assistant principal at Bonneville High School is Brooke Young. Brooke, come on up. Brooke has her Master's of Science in Educational Leadership from Western Governors, a Bachelor of Science with Business Education Composite major, and Marketing minor from Weber State. She's served in education for 17 years. She served at Roy High as an administrative intern. She's been a CTE secondary educator, a FAME instructor, a special education paraprofessional, a computer lab facilitator, a substitute teacher, and a nutrition worker. She has seen things from all angles in our district. What a great perspective for Brooke to bring into leadership. She says this about her wonderful family. I'm a mom to 3 wonderful children, Kiara, my 19-year-old daughter who loves theater and animals, Ethan, my 15-year-old son who loves sports and adventure, and Dawson, my 13-year-old autistic son who loves computers and gaming. Welcome. Brooke will be the new assistant at Bonneville. Welcome, Brooke.
Thank you so much, Superintendent, President Ritchie, and the board for the opportunity to be here again in such a recent and short time. As a homegrown student and parent and community member and teacher and now administrator of Weber School District, I just want to say it's an honor to be a part of this school district. I thank you again for this opportunity. I thank all of the leaders in this room. There are many in this room that have been a huge support and mentors to me in my journey, and I want to thank all of them as well. So again, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, and last but certainly not least, let's have Carrie Fredrickson come on up. Carrie, welcome. Carrie's in her 15th year in education. She attended Salt Lake Community College, where she received her associate's degree. She has a bachelor's in elementary ed and special education from Western Governors, and her master's in curriculum and instruction and in educational leadership from Western Governors. She has served as a paraprofessional, a life skills teacher in our district. She served as a cheer coach. She's got a lovely little one right there for moral support with her. I love the unicorn, that's perfect. And she also has served as a special education department head at Roy High School. She has 3 amazing children, Parker, Azuri, and Chloe, and a great husband, Troy. Welcome, come on up to the microphone. By the way, Carrie will be serving as the new administrative intern at Rocky Junior High School.
This is my shadow with me. So thank you, Superintendent and the board, for this amazing opportunity. I feel a little overwhelmed with just the trust that you're giving me to be in the administration position. So thank you. I have tons of colleagues here that I've looked up to for years, Mr. Nick Harris and Nicole Warren Doman and Brooke Young and Mr. Williams that have all helped me get to this place. My family, my mom, Mary Lou, my dad, Harold, my stepdad, Steve, my husband, Troy, who works at Hill Air Force Base, Azuri, who goes to Roy Junior, Parker, who's a senior at Roy High, and Chloe, who attends Royal Tots. So thank you very much.
Well, congratulations. We welcome you to the new adventure. And hopefully we're done for a little while on these major changes. The kids are adaptable, the adults are not. Board, we have need for, the next item on the agenda will be the approval of the school name, mascot, and color recommendation for the new junior high school. Mr. Brock Mitchell, please.
I've had quite the first couple months here in my position, and this is one of the more exciting opportunities I've had, is to work with the committee of the naming of the new junior high school. So I want to walk you all through the process that we went through. We felt like we did our due diligence in looking at all aspects that are going to go into what the name, the mascot, and the colors represent. And so hopefully this sets a good story for what that was. This is a rendering of what that school is. We're set to open August of 2024, and it's out in West Haven. So I want to talk about how we got here. So this is a 2-month process. We have gone out, we've collected information, we've talked with community members, we've engaged multiple stakeholders in trying to make sure that we're choosing something that represents that community and something that they can appreciate and be proud of. And we're talking from the highest level, the long-term community members, to our youngest incoming students, because we want them to be proud of this school. Our goal was to be able to present at least 3 names to the board. And as we worked through this process, we found that we were able to deliver on that, and we continued to see that one started to rise above the rest. And so I'll talk about how we get there and show some of those recommendations. So according to policy 6600, this lays out how the naming is put together. It talks about the different committee members. We've got to get representatives from all the schools that may be impacted. So we're looking at the elementaries, the junior highs. So we got Country View, Canesville, West Haven, North Park, and West Weber on the elementary side. And then our junior highs were Sandridge, Walquist, Rocky Mountain, and Roy Jr. And while we don't know the exact boundaries yet, those are the ones we anticipated may have some impact as we put those boundaries together for this new school. So a list of our committee. We had board member Jambrell as part of this, our facilities director, or executive director Larry Hadley, secondary supervisor Matt Williams was part of this. We consolidated and brought in some administrators. So we've got principals from the junior high and the elementary, as well as an assistant principal, certified staff from schools in the area, classified staff, multiple community members, and one of the more exciting components was the students of some of those committee members. The students actually had a really powerful voice in this process. And then based on policy, I was the chair of the committee. So to walk you through what the meetings looked like, our first meeting, we laid out the plan. This is our whole goal, is to present the names for this meeting tonight. What we wanted to do is be able to use the data that was collected from the high school naming, since it was so recently, as our starting point, right? And then build on that, because that was something that was collected from that community. We didn't want to throw that out. We didn't feel like we needed to go back and resurvey, because it was such a recent survey that was done. And there were, approaching 6,000 different submissions already. So we had a pretty good sample size to begin with. We then asked the committee in between our first and second meeting to get out, see the sites, look at the landscape, talk to community members, go visit people within, on their block surrounding the school, just get an idea and a feel of what the community wanted to see from this new school, and bring that back for our second meeting. In between meetings, I had a pretty cool opportunity. I met with and talked to the mayor of West Haven and asked him to get me an idea of some of the longer residents who live there, and asked them to get me a history of the area and some of the nuanced things that maybe they only know, to help us guide that discussion. Things that they talked about were the fact that it was a rural farming community, with the sugar beets and corn being a big component of that. And as time has changed, you're bringing in some of the grains and alfalfas and other traditional crops. They lived, the country living at its best is what that area really believed in. And one of the gentlemen I talked to said, I've started that motto's disappeared essentially, and they don't want to see that lost. So they're hoping to be able to find ways with this school to bring in that feeling. And one thing that stood out is the different views from the area. As you look towards the west, you've got the great sunsets that happen. And as you look to the east, you've got the powerful mountain ranges. And so those are some of the things that I heard from. One that made me chuckle a little bit is a resident, long-term resident. She and her husband have lived there over 60 years. The one thing that she really just wanted to share is that at one point it was called Dinkyville. Didn't know where to take that, but I thought it was a great piece to know. As we sat down in that next meeting, we talked a little bit about the history and how that area was named. And it was originally comprised of Canesville, Taylor, and Wilson, so 3 separate communities. The communities wanted to keep that rural way of life. And what they started hearing is that Roy wanted to bring in and annex some of that land. So those 3 got together and had a plan to create a city. There might have been a little venom in this story, but they said that Taylor decided to back out. And that's why Taylor is still its own city out there. But Wilson and Canesville combined to create West Haven. And the name of West Haven was chosen by ballot with Bob Holmes as their first mayor. And so one of the things that continued to hear, especially from the committees they brought it back, is just the physical features, the lakes, the bays, the mountains, the peaks, the plains. A lot of what they see out there talked heavily about the lake effect as the storms roll through that area. That was something that was pretty predominantly talked about. And then animal life, coyotes, rabbits, all the different things. Unfortunately, as the building of homes extend on, you see less and less of that. And so that's one thing that I heard over and over is they're sad that they don't get to see that same animal life out in that area. So during our second meeting, we talked about that. We also looked at creating an initial list, and the list composed of the names and the mascots. So we separated it and said, we can create any combination of these as we go, but we want to have a definitive name and mascot list to start choosing from. And that's where that community relations started coming in. And we took a huge number of responses. When we sat down from the survey of the high school, we had about 8 on each list. As we started putting together our full list, they jumped up to 25 and 30. And so we really took a lot of what was said and brought it to put into this list. So you can see here the names that were brought to us as a committee, and then the many mascots that were brought in. Now, part of this process was looking at the names of the schools in our own district, right, and not wanting to duplicate the mascots. We also looked from Box Elder through Morgan down through Davis, and looked at all the way from the high schools through the elementaries. And not that we wanted to eliminate anything based on that, but understand the other schools and the names that were out there. And so that was something we did take into account as we went through this. After that first meeting, we actually had students who, on their own, with no prompting whatsoever, put some of this together and wanted to share some ideas that they had. So these are just student art before we ever got to a point of a name or a mascot. They brought this in just with some ideas that they'd gotten from friends, which I thought was pretty neat, pretty neat. So during our second meeting, we took those names and mascot lists and got into small groups. And I asked the small groups to take some time to discuss. And we gave them about 45 minutes to sit and discuss the names and the mascots, and within their groups, get those down to 3. So 3 names, 3 mascots. They did not have to pair them together, just what are your top 3 names, what are your top 3 mascots? And then I asked them to put them together in a combination that they would like to see as a potential name to the school. So you can see where the names got whittled down, the mascots got whittled down. The numbers after is the number of groups that had that same on their list, and then the full name combinations that were put together. And so you can see there's a huge list of names, and one actually came out as coming up twice. So after that meeting, we broke apart. I asked them if there's any anything you hear as we come into meeting 3, don't hesitate to bring it. We don't want to exclude anything. So we met for our 3rd meeting. We talked about the created names. We went back to this list and reviewed them. What I wanted them to look at now is there anything on this list that maybe we didn't want to consider because of certain characteristics? And so based on that, there were a few that dropped off. But what we wanted to make sure is that everyone had a voice. And it was really powerful to see, again, the students step into this and give their voice to this process. We talked a lot about what happens within the city boundaries, the family name implications. While it's great to honor families, sometimes there are things that we may not know about families that we'd rather steer clear of. The student interests, the community feedbacks. We settled on a group of names that we felt were a viable list, and all members were given an opportunity to rank their list. It wasn't necessarily voting for it, but they were able to, this would kind of be the list that we looked at. So this ended up being the list of names that we presented to the committee members individually and allowed them to move them up and down the list. And after that first ranking, this is the way it came out. So we saw previously Mountain View Mavericks was the one that showed up twice when we asked groups to put their names together. As we went through this, Mountain View Mavericks again came to the top. As the committee was starting to talk about it, we decided, let's take the top 6 and go through this process again. So we eliminated the bottom half. So those were the ones we looked at. Now, interesting things about this, we're now down, just by matter of moving these things around, we're down to 3 mascots that stood out: the Mavericks, the Thunderbirds, and Wolverines, right? And a little bit of a mix of the names. So again, we asked them to rank these, move them up and down, and this is the way it ended up. So again, we saw the Mountain View Mavericks head to the top, the Skyhaven Thunderbirds, Ridgeview Mavericks, and West Sky Thunderbirds. And based on the fact that there was a tie at that 3rd, when we are asked to present at minimum 3, we felt like we could not eliminate one, so we wanted to bring 4 to the committee. So our recommendations to the board are out of these 4. So the Mountain View Mavericks, the Skyhaven Thunderbirds, the Ridgeview Mavericks, and the West Sky Thunderbirds. I want to talk a little bit about the rationale that the committee put together for this. So each of the names, as you read through them, refer back to that view from that part of the county. So Mountain View and Ridgeview both are the mountains to the east, right, the powerful mountains. West Sky and Skyhaven play to that open sky to the west, with Skyhaven having the nod to the city of West Haven as part of it. The mascot rationales, our group did a fantastic job of researching and providing some of their rationales why they pushed for some of these. And so the idea behind a maverick is a group willing to come together around a common purpose to strengthen a stance. And that's something we're trying to do with this school, is bring a group together to be strong, a mix from different areas coming together to be strong. It's also someone who exhibits great independence in thought and action. And that, I think, is a powerful thing for our junior high students to start to believe in, the willingness and the ability to stand up for themselves. Mavericks are intellectual, willing to take that stand, and not giving in to peer pressure. For Thunderbirds, we talked a lot about the mythical bird that brings lightning and thunder, and we know the powerful storms that come across that area. We know that it's a symbol of strength and power, which is something we want all of our schools to represent. We go into a school every day trying to build strong and powerful young students that can go into their futures. It does pay homage to the Native American history of the area. That idea of a Thunderbird is based in Native American history. And one thing that was brought up is the fact that we have Hill Air Force Base close. There are the Thunderbirds in the Air Force. And so it's a way to potentially bring in Hill Air Force Base into the name as well. Now, with colors, the group felt like no matter which of the names we present and is accepted, these colors could be strong. And the idea being they are different from any other school in our district. They stand apart. They're not something that's going to be another blue. because we have quite a few blue schools in our area. So we wanted to have something that just stands apart from all the other schools. One important thing is notice down there on the bottom right, I have logos with the question mark. We didn't want to dictate to the school what the logo has to look like. So strategically, we wanted to make sure that when that new principal is named for this school, they can define what that school is. What does that mascot actually look like and represent? So we wanted to take ourselves out of that and give the mascot, give the colors, and let that principal and community have a say as to what those logos actually look like. So again, board recommendations: Mountain View Mavericks, Skyhaven Thunderbirds, Ridgeview Mavericks, West Sky Thunderbirds. And after discussion within our committee, the number of times we talked through this from the second meeting when the groups were asked to put the names together, every time we ranked, one stood out above the rest, and it was Mountain View Mavericks. So board, that is the committee's recommendation for the name of the new junior high school.
Very well done. Thanks to all those who helped in the committee process. Job well done, time committed. We don't do this very often, you know what I mean? But we thank our constituents for allowing us to build a new school out there that these kids will remember. So, board, it's time for an action item. I would entertain a motion to accept one of the names.
So moved.
Which one?
Mountain View Mavericks with the mascot as Mavericks and the colors as teal and charcoal gray.
I'd entertain a second. Second by Bruce. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The name it is, Mountain View Mavericks. Thank you.
President Ritchie, can I just thank Brock Mitchell? He was an incredible force in bringing the community together and hearing all voices. And it was an incredible process to watch and be a part of. I was more of a watcher than anything, but it was amazing to see the collaboration that happened.
Thanks for being a watcher. But more important, the kids, man, I liked how those kids were involved, and they'll remember that and they'll spread that amongst them kids. It's a job well done to you, and make sure everybody knows we appreciate their time and effort. Please.
We might say this is the color, not rendering, not that color rendering. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Whatever one they have on the slide. Yes.
Going out.
That one looks a lot different than this one.
Yeah, that's pretty unclear.
This one is much closer to what was recommended.
So that's the colors we're going with, right? We don't need to vote on those, Brock? Because that was included in that proposal. All right, job well done on following policy 6600. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, board, will be the approval of the interlocal agreement with West Haven City. Dr. Robert Peterson, please.
Thank you, President. As you know, as you pointed out earlier, President Ritchie, that thanks to the support of our constituents and voters, we are in the process of building new schools. And one of those is West Haven Junior High, which is now Mountain View Junior High. So I gotta get used to saying Mountain View Junior High. Anyway, it's the new junior high school in West Haven. And I also want to point out that as we're building, we proposed an idea with West Haven City to have to construct a gym twice as big as what's normally designed in that school. And we're modeling this after our experience we had with South. You recall that when we built South Junior High, we built the gym twice as big, and South Ogden City paid for the addition in return for use of the gym. And so it was a true win-win. We're able to use the entire facility during the school day, and during the evening, the South Ogden community for their rec programs can use it in the evening. We fortunately entered in this agreement with West Haven City. The addition of the new gym is about $3.1 million, and they are able to use the entire gym, both sides, after 5:30 in the evening on Monday, after school days, and on the weekend all day. Anyway, it's a good deal, and there's an interlocal agreement that went out in your packet. We discussed it in board meeting. It just kind of lays out the groundwork and rules on maintenance and utilities and those kinds of things, and the sharing of the cost. And it's a true win-win. we're excited to enter into this agreement with West Haven City. The agreement has been drafted and worked on with officials from West Haven City, our own attorney and others, and the West Haven City Council has already approved it. And we are recommending that the board approve this interlocal agreement as we move forward.
Dr. Peterson, thank you for that. And I got to say the same thing. I sure appreciate West Haven City wanting to do this with us. It's a great partnership. It works very well with South Ogden and Roy City and all those partnerships that they're chipping in to pay for their portion and let us use it.
And
And
some,
we want to be part of the community.
yeah.
And this just helps that be part of the community.
Yeah, and it's, for $3.1 million, some may think that's a lot, but this building will be around for 50+ years. And when you spread that 3.1 million over that many years and the use that it's going to get, it's a really good deal. And then we get to use it during the school hours. It's a great use of taxpayer dollars.
I agree. And they're going to love the green and silver being something different than everybody else. Teal, oh, well,
Till, yeah.
whatever that color was, it was beautiful.
And charcoal
And
gray.
I like the Mountain View Maverick, so that's great. So, board, you've heard the presentation by Dr. Peterson. I would entertain a motion to accept the interlocal agreement with West Haven City on the additional gym at the new Mountain View Junior High. Motion by Paul, second by Dane. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Robert. Let's move forward with that, Mr. Hadley. The next item on the agenda would be the approval of the revised policy 8200, 8210, 8220 on sensitive material and library policy. This is on a first reading by Nick Harris and Heidi Alder. And I would just make a suggestion while you're coming up to the audience that there is no open comment or public input during this meeting, but we sure would like you to email us all of your suggestions. We have 30 days before the next board meeting on the second reading. If there's something that's not in there, please get on the website. Email Gina Butters, the superintendent, and Nick Harris, who's actually over that curriculum. They will compile it, and then we have to see it as a draft before. So we just like to get all that information to them first. But please, please, if you have something to send it to them so we can compile that. We want input, similar to what we want on the junior high in West Haven. Mr. Harris, please.
Thank you, President Ritchie and the board, Superintendent Butters. I'm pleased to be here to present a first reading of Policy 8200, Sensitive Materials and Library Policy. And of course, Heidi's here if you have a question specific to her. And she's happy to jump up anytime and answer that.
Nick,
Go ahead.
can you hold up just a minute while they pass these out?
Oh, happy to. We do have some copies of the policy here. Thanks for your help, you guys.
Sorry for the
And
interruption.
yeah, no, that's good because it gives Heidi a chance to walk up to. And while that's going around, I will just say, having revised the existing library selection and reconsideration policy 8200, we're prepared to present this first reading on the new sensitive materials policy, which includes the selection and reconsideration procedure. But it also includes the definition of sensitive material as per HB 374. This policy combines our previous 8210 and 8220 policy into one 8200 policy. Our legal counsel, Heidi, myself, along with the superintendency, we've met with parent groups, we've met with employee groups, we've met with concerned citizens. Heidi has spent a lot of time reaching out to legal minds across the state. We've consulted USBE's model policy as well as USBA's model policy. We've looked at a lot of other districts' policies. And our goal here is to create something that's our best effort, that has taken all this feedback into account while still creating something that supports librarians in their important duty of selecting high-quality instructional material, and that contributes to their collections in a positive way. And before I really get into the actual policy, I invited a few of our hardworking librarians here tonight. They're going to kill me, but I'm actually going to point them out because as we've their ears have probably been itching since March. We've been speaking about this group of people for a long time, and I would like to have a face to these people that we keep referring to. So I'm going to make them stand up. I saw some here. I see a couple back there. These people represent hardworking individuals who take in very seriously their duty of finding instructional material. I'm not going to make you all present, but I should. Thank you, guys. And I appreciate them being here. I'm just going to go ahead and since Heidi and I kind of agreed, since we've already had 2 study sessions where we have gone through the policy line by line, we won't do that tonight. Instead, we'll pull out some highlights and some maybe just differences between the previous policy and this new revised policy, if that's okay with you. So I just wanted to mention the section 1 is a purpose and philosophy, and that's new. That's an addition that Heidi has put together, and it reads really well, especially that last sentence. The district seeks through this policy to provide a process and procedure for selecting instructional material that provides students access to a wide variety of ideas and viewpoints that are educationally suitable for school-age children and that are in compliance with state and federal law. And this will help these librarians create a robust collection that's valuable for their students and still is in compliance with the law. Section 2, you'll see that the bottom sentence is new, and the district will accommodate a parent's legal guardian's request to not allow the parent's legal guardian's child access to certain instructional materials. And this is easily done through our Destiny software, in which there is a note that can pop up when a student, a librarian can put a note on a student's account, and when the student comes, a note can pop up, and we can see right then, what a student, if there's a note that a parent or legal guardian has asked for a certain thing. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
On that note, we felt it was really important and heard a lot of feedback from parents that they want to be involved in what their students are reading and what their students are accessing in the library. And so while on the one hand, it would be inappropriate to allow any one parent to make a decision for another parent's child, we wanted to make sure we honor the right of an individual parent to make a decision and a choice for their own child. And so if a parent decides that a certain material or certain book or work that's in the library collection is not one that parent wants their child to access, we want to honor that request and accommodate that so that parents are controlling what their children are accessing at school.
Thank you. As you can see, we've added a couple of definitions in section 3. Section 4, I wanted to make sure and point out letter B, some of our selection criteria that we've updated or added to. Specifically, like letter D, teacher, parent, student request. We wanted to make sure that part of the selection comes from the community and from the students. I and J, adequate scope and depth of coverage. We've added the age appropriateness, and letter N, educational goals. And so these are the selection criteria that the librarians will be looking at. In number 3 there, one of the things that we want to do is really beef up, we got this feedback from community, is beef up, obviously we have to balance the feasibility of the librarians to be able to do their job while still honoring what we're trying to do here, which is get appropriate books and good books in the library. However, as you know, there's, as we've discussed in previous work sessions, there's a very real possibility that they're looking at 200 to 300 books a year, and so we had to try to balance out the feasibility of what is realistic under their scope of work. We settled on them looking at 3 to 5 reliable selection aids, authoritative selection aids, but we've also included, and this was brought up to us by several parent groups, at least one of these sources must be parent-centered, a review source, such as Goodreads or Common Sense. And we appreciate that, but also we understand it's when available because, like for example, a local author, that book, students might really want to read a book from a local author, but that might not be available as a parent review on good Common Sense media yet. And so when available, we want to really make sure they have that chance. Anything from, are we good? I'll just keep going. why don't you talk about number 4? That's good.
One of the other changes we made from the previous policy is in direct response to a bill that was passed this year that a lot of people are probably aware of. It's been in the media quite frequently, HB 374, which prohibits sensitive material from being in our schools. Sensitive material is defined in the law as pornographic or indecent material. And while on the back end, we have a process in place now, which Nick will talk about, for reconsidering books that exist in our library on the grounds that they are alleged to be sensitive material, we also wanted to put in place a safeguard on the front end to make sure that as librarians are selecting material, they're making sure that they are not selecting books that are considered pornographic or indecent material, quote, sensitive material. And so in the process of doing reviews, reviewing book reviews and going through the book themselves, if there is a review that indicates that there is sexual content in the book, then the librarian has a heightened obligation to read the entire material and go through a legal analysis, which we will train all librarians on. I will provide that training as a legal counsel for the school district to determine whether or not the legal definition that is in the law that defines sensitive material applies. And if after a review of the material, it is determined that this book constitutes sensitive material, it will not be placed on the shelves and it will be sent back to the center. It won't even be brought into the schools.
In addition, there's one of the highlights, number 5 there. Just wanted to make sure we understand we're going to keep the principal apprised of the titles that are being added to the collection. So we'll make sure that happens. Section 5, just want to point out letter C there. If a specific work or title was subject to reconsideration on the claim basis that the work was or contained sensitive material, and the work or title was retained after the procedure, which we'll talk about in a minute, the name or work of the title and the author will be listed on the district's website for parents' information. So we're going to create a section on the website that will have that for transparency's sake. And then also so a parent can do one of two things. If they're thinking about, I wonder if that book has ever been up for reconsideration, they can look and see, or they can also look and see, prior to their student attending the school, that's a book I've heard of. I want to do some research, and maybe they can reach out to the librarian and say, I don't want my student reading that book. Section 6, let's talk about the actual procedure. I'm going to skip to letter E and just talk about the process. So, if you want, I was going to mention the two things, either number 2 for a request or for reconsideration based on educational suitability. We encourage the patron that's coming in with that request to have a discussion with the librarian. And if they're not happy with that, maybe take it up the chain to the principal, the administrator. That's in letter A and B. Or maybe just have that conversation together. Let's talk about educational suitability, and the librarian can explain what their reasoning was, what their rationale was based on the selection criteria. Number 3, though, for a request for reconsideration based on allegations that material is sensitive, the individual filing the request may directly complete the request for reconsideration library media center materials and provide the form to the administrator. That was based on feedback we got from community members who encouraged us not to make a procedure that was so lengthy and arduous that it would discourage them from being part of this process. And so this was our attempt to honor that from the community and say, yeah, we understand if it's sensitive, you don't have to go have those discussions. It'll just go right to the principal. And so that was our attempt there. Go ahead.
I know that we've been over this with the board, but for the benefit of the public, the process that the district is presenting is twofold. That when there's a challenge for material that is considered sensitive, then it goes through a particular process. And if the challenge is based on the fact that the book is educationally unsuitable, it goes through a different process. And the reason why we made that distinction is because the definition of sensitive material is very specific in the law. HB 374 defines sensitive material as pornographic or indecent material. And there is a legal definition of pornography that we have to apply, we have to look at. We can't just assume something's pornographic because it has sexual content in it. We have to go through and apply the legal analysis, which requires us to look at the work as a whole. On the other hand, there may be members of the community, parents, employees, students, who feel like a book has too many swear words, or a book has material or ideas that are unsavory. And for that analysis, we look at it differently, because we're not looking at whether it's pornography. We're looking at whether or not it's educationally suitable and whether it's age appropriate. And so there's a different analysis that we've walked the board through already, and maybe for sake of time, we can skip for tonight. But we just wanted to point out that there is a distinction in the law between what is considered sensitive material, which is pornographic material, and everything else that someone finds objectionable.
Yeah, thanks. And so under that procedure, we've got either one of those directions that Heidi just outlined. Now, once a committee is formed, we're on number 5 here. The committee shall include the librarian media center specialist, an administrator, 2 teachers, and we've had some discussion just for the public's sake, probably 2 qualified teachers in that subject area. We might add some wording there. And then 3 parent representatives selected as follows: 1 from the the school community council, 1 from the PTA, and 1 selected at random, who obviously has the opportunity to accept or decline the invitation to be on the committee. And if they decline, we'll go down the row and just keep randomly selecting. And I think that I wanted to point out that idea, the community council, the PTA, and the parent, that was also brought to us by a community member, and I thought that was a really good idea, so we adopted that. Parents and teachers on the committee will serve for a period of 1 year. So, and it'll basically be that school year. So if a request for reconsideration comes in March, they'll serve from March until May. If it comes in August 29th, they'll serve from August all the way till May, and then we'll start it over again that following year. Any questions on that? Comments? Okay, we will move to, Heidi's already sort of outlined. Section F deals with review if it's a sensitive material, and obviously there is a definition and a legal analysis that will take some training by Heidi, and 1 through 5 kind of explain that. But I wanted to point out number 6. This is a difference between the 2 approaches we could take. If it's sensitive material, if a book is found to be sensitive material, number 6, materials removed from one library because we have decided it's sensitive will be removed from all libraries in the district. If it's pornography in one school, it's pornography and we're going to take it off the shelves. However, in letter G, you'll notice down in number 2, if the reconsideration committee determines that the librarian media center material is not educationally suitable, so we've had that discussion with the librarian and the principal, it's made it through the reconsideration process for that particular community, the material will be removed from that school, but not necessarily in the district. I hope you can see the subtle difference there. And I just wanted to point out finally, the appeal process has been updated. Based on feedback that we've received from several groups, the district will form a reconsideration appeal committee made up of the superintendent, myself, a board member representing that school, because I know you're all such big readers, the district's legal counsel, and the director of curriculum and/or the director of equity. So that'll be if an appeal is necessary, that'll be the committee that's made up on the district level, and the appeals committee decision's final at that point. Following, we just have really section 7, classroom libraries. This hasn't changed a great deal, although I wanted to point out the fact that letter D, if instructional material is in the library media center collection, a teacher does not need to go through the selection process to include that material in the teacher's classroom library. And maybe for the public's sake, I'll just explain the difference between, a teacher might have a classroom library that is not necessarily the exact same as the library's collection. And so if that's the case, we wanted parents or community members to have that same opportunity to request a book to be reconsidered if exists in a teacher's classroom library, just like they could in a teacher's, the main library. Anything else?
The only thing we just wanted to point out, teachers have libraries in their classrooms all over the district, all over the state, I would imagine, to encourage kids to read. And we want to make sure that all books that are in our schools have gone through the same selection criteria, which is going to take some training and it's going to take some time to work with our teachers, particularly our English teachers who probably have a very robust library. But we want to make sure that the books that are available for students to voluntarily check out, we're not talking about curriculum or assigned reading. We're talking about books that are available for kids to voluntarily check out, that those all go through the same selection criteria, that there's some basis for educational suitability and that they are not in any way, shape, or form pornographic.
Having said that, any questions or comments? Go ahead, Jenna.
Come on. Oh, there you go. It's impossible for us to applaud you enough for the work that you have done on this, both of you. Thank you so much. We know that it's not easy and it's demanding and it's taken a great deal of time and effort, and we really, really appreciate that. Thank you to both of you. I have one kind of question. First of all, the purpose and philosophy is just beautifully stated. It's wonderful. Appreciate it, its introduction and its addition to the policy. The thing that I am struggling with is it says the district also believes parents are primarily responsible for the education of their students and encourages parents to be involved. Yet we go to the formation, the composition of the committee. And I know the statement was made well. The district is responsible, ultimately liable. And so it's kind of like we're double speaking. We're saying parents are the primary responsible people. And yet our composition of the committee is heavy on the educator part. And I understand why you've explained that or how you've explained that. But I would submit that if we are going to be true to that philosophy and policy in the beautiful first statement, that we need to have one more parent so that the parent weight is heavier in the composition of that committee. Again, the parent is a primary responsible person or people, and therefore they should be the primary judges that compose the reconsideration committee if we're going to be true to our policy and philosophy. So, thank you.
Yeah, and if I could, I appreciate that, Janice, and I think that's a great comment. I think what's important to remember is that a parent's responsibility is to work with their child, and a parent's right is to be responsible for the education of their child. The reconsideration committee makes decisions for everybody's kids, and that would be the difference that I would submit, that we are valuing, that we do honor, that the policy does honor a parent's right to direct the education of their child. But it becomes tricky and problematic when a parent begins to direct the education of other people's children by determining what is and isn't accessible in a library. And that's what would happen when we have a parent-heavy reconsideration committee that makes decisions for all children in the school as opposed to just their children.
Can I make a comment on that as well, Heidi, as an educator, well, I guess a former educator and still an educator at heart? I believe they've hired us as professionals. So if I'm building a home, I don't think that I should tell an electrician how to put the electricity in my home. I trust that that professional is going to give me better advice than I might make as a person. I think it's okay for me to agree to it and understand it, but to not be the professional and not to have to decide that for all homes in the neighborhood. So I think it's really important that we look at our educators as professional and do treat them as a professional on that committee.
Questions, comments?
Seeing none,
Thank you.
we'll entertain a motion. Do you want to stay right there?
No.
Yes, you do. Board, I'd entertain a motion then to approve the revised policy 8200, 8210, and 8220 on sensitive material library policy on a first reading. So moved by Dean, second by Bruce. Any discussion? All in favor? Do you have
Aye.
discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. We will see you next month, reminding that if anybody in the audience or anywhere that our community serves, please send emails of question or concern or suggestions to Superintendent Butters and or Nick Harris, and we can get those emails posted anywhere they need to, but they are on our website, right? I mean, under your name and under Superintendent. All right? Board Member Whitterson.
I just wanted to say thanks also to everybody that's involved, Nick, Heidi, Mr. Campbell, thanks for your involvement and your input and your passion for this, and all the community members that have given input. I think this is a good way to do this. I mentioned earlier, I don't know through the years that I've ever seen a policy that we've revised that had so much colored ink on it. But I think that's a good thing. I think we all just need to remember that this is a living document. You know, next year the state may change the law a little bit, and we don't have to go back in and revisit it and look at it. We just need to keep up on it.
Well stated. I ditto that on everybody out here, so thank you. I mean, there's a lot of time and a lot of people, a lot of cost here, and we thank you for your interest in more ways than one. So thank you. Board, we've come to the end of our agenda, but we do have a need for a closed session. This meeting is a strategy session to discuss the character, professional competency, and or physical or mental health of an individual. This is a roll call vote. Dr. Peterson, please.
We need a motion to go.
Oh, we need a motion to go into the session. So moved by Paul, second by Bruce. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's take a roll call vote on that motion. Jan, you just say yes or no. Yes or no.
Yes.
Bruce? Yes. Paul? Janice? Doug? Dean? Yeah. And John?
Yes,
The motion passes.
thank you. Having said that, thank you. Be safe, have a good night, and congratulations to all of our new educators. Enjoy the heat. It's 99.
My watch is 97.